No, Badger is not back to content creation. He just wanted to show you this new build. It's a fun one. Welcome. It's your friendly neighborhood Badger here. Makes me a bit emotional to say that. I'm back, but not really. This might be the only video you see for quite some time on this channel, and I know there's been a massive hiatus. I'll talk about that at the end of the video. You can skip to that if you want to, and if you don't want to stick around for that, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about this fun build. I wanted to make a video because I've been playing something that I find super fun. Now, it's not the best build in the world, but it's pretty darn good. The DPS is crazy, and Badger, what are you doing? Just talk about the build. What are we playing? Volcanic Fissure. How are we playing it? Strength stacking totems. You can probably see that if I open my inventory here and we see Brutus's lead sprinkler. Now, I'm going to go over all the gear soon, but first I want to talk about the interaction that I'm, you could probably say, abusing. Let's have a little look at my Anoint. Vengeant Cascade. Now, a lot of you know that Vengeant Cascade has been an Anoint for a while, but it hasn't really functioned that well. It did get changed this patch, and I was like, it got changed, right? Let's see if I can figure out an interesting interaction with this amulet, and I did. Now, Volcanic Fissure is basically a slam skill that is Molten Strike. You strike down, it extends, I'll show you by taking off Earthbreaker and Multi-Strike here. You strike down, it extends a fissure, then at the end of that fissure, it explodes and does some molten strikes here. Right, now you may have seen something quite interesting happening right there. Let me just try that again for you and see if you can figure out what's going on. Okay, so there's one thing that's not intended about Volcanic Fissure. Those molten strikes are supposed to fly out and explode once on the ground. Vengeant Cascade states that at the end of attack projectiles, they return to you. Now, the way that Volcanic Fissure works is you are not creating the magmatic orbs. The fissure is, and therefore the you is kind of null and void. And what happens with those orbs is they bounce in place. So basically, we have double the amount of projectiles per molten per Volcanic Fissure. So what does this turn out to be? All right, so Volcanic Fissure has a base of 4. I'm using Anomalous Volcanic Fissure with 20% quality, which gives 1 additional projectile, equaling 5 projectiles on the Volcanic Fissure. And then I'm also using an a Helm enchant, which is 2 additional projectiles. So every Volcanic Fissure has 7 projectiles, which then get doubled to 14 projectiles. Now, with 3 totems, that is 3 totems down, attacking about 3 times a second. So if we do the calculations, 3 times 14 is looking at, what is that, 42? Times 3 is about 126, my math's pretty slow, 126 projectiles on the ground every second. Which is a lot of damage. I'll put the POV down below. You can have a little bit of a look. You may have seen a little bit of a showcase at the start. Let's do a little bit of a map, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the gear. Okay, I'll put these in. We're just going to do a random map so you can see the clear as well. You only saw the boss DPS at the start there, but we're going to chuck a little map in. Let's do like a what's going to be a good one? Just a bit more of an open one. Let's do a shipyard map. All right. Let's just elk this up here a little bit. Yep, doesn't look too bad. Let's chuck that one in, and we'll do some Maven there as well, so you can see the boss at the end. So the biggest downside, there's a few downsides with this build. Biggest downside is you've got a lot of delay. You're summoning the totem is then attacking, which is then hitting the fissure, which is then throwing the molten strikes around the place. So it's quite a delay. It's kind of like a poison build in that regard. It's a lot of delay, but once all 3 totems are attacking at the same time, it's just pretty darn insane. The second thing is I'm relatively squishy right now because I haven't gone too much into damage. Right now I'm level 80, too much into survivability. Right now I'm level 87. I don't have any spell suppression. Now, for those PoE players, you will know that spell suppression's relatively mandatory on most builds that aren't abusing some other type of defense. Right. So basically, my survivability right now is running around, throwing down my totems, and just making sure I don't get hit. I have a decent-ish amount of armor once I've got my, flask up, 15k, but it's really not that much. It's not enough to survive, Around that, we're getting some less damage taken from the Chieftain Ascendancy, which is the Ascendancy that I am. As you can see here, also, a big downside is when bosses move around, it's actually a lot more difficult to hit them, to kill them. That's a little bit of the mapping showcase. Not the fastest thing in the world, but actually a lot better than you would first think with a build like this. I'm specting to Legion and Expedition at the moment. I just recently respec'd from doing a bunch of heist, and it's pretty darn good. It's functioning really, really well. I'm really happy with it. Alright, let's go over the gear. I know that's what you're here for, and then I'm gonna frick off and keep playing and probably not make another video for 2 or 3 months, so... Let's have a little look. Okay, so first of all, the biggest interaction with strength stacking Brutus's Lead Sprinkler is obviously stacking strength. I have a 1468. I'm hoping by the end game of this character, we get closer to 2000. Brutus's Lead Sprinkler is giving us 4 to 7 fire damage to attacks with this weapon per 10 strength. So right now, that's a lot of damage. That's quite a lot of damage. That's about 1100 top end fire damage on a one-handed weapon, which is pretty good. Alongside this, I've also baked a Crucible Tree in here. Now, you might be able to see some attributes right there. Yes, I did manage to get 6% increased strength on my Brutus's Lead Sprinkler. I also got increased spell damage, which actually helps. I'll talk about that in a moment. We have more cast speed, which just helps with casting anything else that's not, my totems or anything like that. And at the end, +1 to minimum endurance and power charges, and -1 to maximum frenzy charges. We don't use frenzy, and power and endurance are both really, really good for us. So overall, this Brutus's Lead Sprinkler is absolutely amazing. I'm really, really happy with it. The next interaction with strength stacking, we have Crown of Eyes and Iron Fortress. So the biggest thing with strength stacking is that strength gives you, it gives you +1% melee physical damage. Now, we don't deal physical damage at all. So stacking strength and dealing fire damage means that we don't actually get any bonuses from that 5 strength there. However, what we can do is use the Iron Fortress to instead grant 3% increased melee physical damage per 10 strength. We can then take on the tree Iron Will to give that strength damage bonus applies to spell damage as well. All right. So, you following? So, now all of our strength is giving us 3/5 of 1500 is like 900% increased spell damage. And then we use Crown of Eyes to then bring that spell damage back to our attacks at 150% of its value. So, we are getting 1450% increased damage, increased attack damage, right? So what that means is scaling that strength is just boosting our damage heaps right here. We are then using another interesting interaction, which is actually making my survivability not nearly as good, but we're just using Calm Spirit. That's basically just generating us rage right here for every 100 life recovery per second from our regeneration. If I take the gloves off, you can see that my life regeneration is 445. So that's meaning that we're gaining about 4.5 rage per second with the Calm Spirit on. One thing that I do want to do on this character, as we are a chieftain, what I want to do is actually get the Forbidden Jewels to get the, I think it's called Rite of Ruin, which triples the inherent rage bonuses. And that's a Berserker Ascendancy. So hopefully I want to do that, which then is going to give us a bunch more damage through our rage. This also means that on bosses, we can just tap Berserk, and we can do a bunch more damage through Berserking. Everything else here, pretty standard. Nothing crazy at all. There's no other real big things on the tree. I did get a nice Lethal Pride Timeless Jewel with 5% increased strength, 5% increased strength, max life, 20 strength, and totem placement speed with the 5 nodes that I'm taking right here. So that's a really, really nice Lethal Pride. If you want the number, 14,682. Chuck that one into your little notebooks. And as I said, I'm 87. So realistically, I've got about another 6 to 7 points that are probably going to go into one more medium cluster, and then filling out just a couple of other things on the tree. I do also want to see if I can instead cut this off right here and extend this tree around here, and then put like a what's that, Jewel? The split personality in this cluster right here, hopefully. Or I might even extend over here and put it a little bit further and get a little bit extra from a cluster up there. We'll see. The build probably has quite a lot of room to improve. Investment right now, I would say, is 10 to 15 divines. And that's, you know, that's an estimate. My flask's absolutely terrible. Really, really, really bad. The last thing that I will talk about, I do have brittle ground while moving, so, you know, that's for my crits. Probably want a bottled faith in here somehow. I want to be able to figure out a way to get rid of this divine mana flask and just fix my defenses a little bit more. You know, defenses kind of lacking on the build. If you've got any ideas, chuck them down below. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. That's the end of the Path of Exile video. Let's talk about me for a little bit, maybe, if you want to. Where have I been? Basically, I've stopped content creating full-time, or just in general. This video is once in a blue moon, just because I really enjoyed this character, having a lot of fun with it, and I wanted to talk about the Vengeance Cascade right there. I myself am pretty much working full-time, or working 3 days a week in quality assurance in the video game industry, and 2 days a week teaching piano, like private music tutoring, basically. So full-time work hours, but splitting it up quite a bit, and I'm enjoying it a lot. Having a ton of fun with it, really enjoying the security of it. One thing among many, many other things that made me stop content creation was basically not having security month to month. If I had a bad month streaming, or if it was even a bad Path of Exile League, that would mean that I would struggle to pay the bills and do what I needed to provide for myself and my family and everything like that. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what's happened. Am I still around the community? Yeah, I still am. You know, I have an absolutely terrible habit of not responding to people because my brain has a little bit of an executive function problem. But that's something I'm also working on, trying to figure that out. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. I might not respond, or I might respond. Depends, you know, what I'm doing at the moment and everything like that. But I am around. You might see me in other people's streams. I'm going to shout out Captain Lance. He's absolutely killing it at the moment in the Path of Exile community, and I always jump in there and say hi to anyone in Captain Lance's stream when I'm around. And, you know, there's a bunch of other content creators who are really just holding that torch and doing amazing things in the community. So keep it up, everyone. If you're a content creator out there playing Path of Exile and you're saying like, oh, where did Badger go? I miss him. Don't worry, still around. I'm just more of a shadow lurker now. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being around. Even when I look, if I get 5 viewers on this video, it's still going to blow my mind that people still pay attention to what I do, even though I've been around, been away for ages. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Catch you around, everyone.